Hello, hello, welcome back to Delta Force. It's now week 3 of my challenge where I'm aiming to reach 15 million Technic Alloy in just 1 month, while only playing 1 match per day. And as you can see, we got some work to do, as we're only a third of the way there. Luckily, I've developed an elegant solution to our money problems. Gambling! There, now we're a bit richer. Seriously though, I need to focus during this episode because at the rate I'm going, 15 million is way out of reach. But don't worry, there will be more gambling later in the video, so make sure to leave a like for being financially responsible. And without further ado, here's the first game. In Raid 1, I did something a little risky. I wasn't brave enough to head into the admin building where all the good loot is, so instead I settled for this major substation area which contained a high-value safe. Knowing a spot like this would attract lots of other players as well, I carefully looted a smaller building which had some electronics and computer components in it, but nothing super valuable. But as I left to hopefully get closer to the safe, I began hearing footsteps, meaning I wasn't alone. And it was at this moment I found out that Delta Force has very, very accurate wall hitboxes. However, that player had a teammate, and they weren't happy. Oh, jeez. So after healing up, I took a different route to get closer to said teammate, and despite almost fumbling a perfect angle, I managed to take them down. But they weren't the only team around, and when this vulture came over to collect the loot I didn't want, I took them out as well. But they had a fairly distasteful name, so I'm just gonna cover that up. Several fights later, I finally managed to enter the main substation building where I found this new helmet, an encrypted note, and that safe I marked at the beginning of the game, which somehow hadn't been looted yet. Right next to the safe was the server computer, which contained a motherboard of the brand ASOS, which doesn't sound anything like any real electronics manufacturers. At this point, I was happy with what I'd collected and began heading toward extraction, but another operator attacked me from behind. I managed to escape, but I was so paranoid that I ended up hiding in this little red structure, from which I managed to eliminate the player's whole team, along with an entire other team that showed up afterward. Yes! Worried I might be ambushed by a third team, I looted very quickly and sprinted for the extraction point, safely exiting the dam with a total of 462,000 Technic Alloy. Unfortunately, my next couple raids didn't go so well. After some gambling, I entered Raid 2, where I spawned near the cement plant, and actually collected a decent amount of loot, including an SSD from this computer. I even picked up an epic chest rig and backpack off this guy, but with everything going so well, I got a little overconfident. I hate those stun grenades with a burning passion. More gambling. And Raid 3 was even worse. This time, I honestly just wasn't being careful. I made a ton of noise, and it didn't take long for other players to figure out where I was. Yeah. 11k, not great. And as I'm recording this, I have no clue if Raid 4 will be any better, because it hasn't actually happened yet. Fingers crossed. Alright, luckily Raid 4 went much, much better than the last two. After gambling a bit more, I hopped into Zero Dam once again, because honestly, I just really like this map better than Lyoli Grove. I once again spawned by the substation, and the match played out pretty similarly to my first game of this week. I looted the smaller building first, and the loot was garbage. I encountered some enemy players, and managed to eventually get inside the main substation building and open the safe. And just like last time, before I could extract, I had some more enemies to deal with. But this time, they met me right inside the substation. And after I dealt with that, another team arrived. Sound familiar? None of these players were too much trouble, and while looting, I was feeling pretty good about the whole raid. And then I noticed the timer. 5 minutes, I gotta go. So I left the other loot behind, which hopefully wasn't super valuable, and made a mad dash toward extraction, securing 425,000 Technic Alloy worth of loot. And back at base, I noticed I'd completed a quest that rewarded me with an additional 100,000 Technic Alloy, which unlocked another quest worth the same amount. And that quest was super easy to complete, meaning I earned another 100k. And that unlocked another quest, also worth 100,000 Technic Alloy. That one takes 12 hours to complete though. And 12 hours later, the quest was complete, bringing me to 7.2 million. Yeah, all this questing and I'm still not even halfway. Anyway, before joining my next match, I decided to acquire a key card for myself, as from what I can tell, locked rooms tend to have much better loot. I was lucky enough to spawn right next to the visitor center where my key card could be used, but the loot inside was pretty underwhelming, as was the rest of the game. At least I didn't lose anything too valuable, I guess. And while Raid 6 went much better, it still didn't stand out from my other 2 successful extractions. I spent the whole game in the substation, fought off a few other teams, looted a safe, and left with 400,000 Technic Alloy. It wasn't a failure, but it wasn't as much money as I need to be making at this point in the challenge, and it certainly didn't make for a very exciting portion of the video because it was basically the exact same as Raids 1 and 4. So at this point, there was only one thing I could do. More gambling. Okay, I know that made it sound like something super clutch was about to happen, which was the original plan, but things never go to plan this game now, do they? I had wanted to finally check out the admin building for the first time during this raid, and I headed toward that general area as soon as I spawned in, but I found some loot in a more easily accessible area first, and by the time I was done looting, other players were already inside admin. And for some reason, instead of contesting, I decided to go around the top side of the map, eliminating guards, opening safes, and completing quests. And even after all that, I hadn't even broken 400,000 Technic Alloy in that raid. I desperately tried to complete a task at the cement plant to get a little bit more money, but time was running out, so I had to extract. And while my loot wasn't worth loads, the quest that I completed, and just a little bit more gambling, boosted my gains from that raid to be on par with the other successful extractions in this video. And when it was all said and done, I was up to 8.3 million Technic Alloy. Yeah, at this point, 15 million is not looking possible, so next week, I'll try to take some actual risks on all the maps I have available, which will hopefully make for an exciting series finale, whether or not it goes well. Subscribe so you don't miss it, and I will see you in the last episode next week. Goodbye.